You can do your transformations like we did in Chapter 3, but we're going to develop a shortcut because each of those letters, right, for y equals a sine b, x minus c plus d, well, also it'll be for cos as well. This can be in another set of brackets. All of those things change something specifically. The a always changed the amplitude. The b value always changed the period. The d value changed your center line. And your c value shifted things left and right. So if we can use those observations, we can graph special order. I'll add the word graphing there. We can graph these quite quickly. Here's the special order. And it's different than what we did for our transformations. And this special order only works for sine and cosine, but it will allow us to graph these quick and easy. You're going to start with your d value. Your d value is your sinusoidal axis. That's the first thing you're going to do. Graph your sinusoidal axis. After dealing with your d value, you're going to use your amplitude to mark your max and min values on your y-axis. Next, your b value. You're going to find your period. You're going to mark it on your x-axis. And divide it into 4 equal sections. Next, you're going to draw your graph without the phase shift with a dotted line. And then finally, you're going to apply the phase shift in the end. So I call this very creative name for this technique, DAB-C. And that tells you the order. You're going to start with your d value, then your a value, then your b value. There's a dash there to remind you need to draw it with a dotted line, and then you apply your phase shift in the end. So we're going to do an example at the bottom of the page to see what this looks like. Example, graph y equals 3 cos 1/2 x minus pi over 4 plus 2. So let's look at what happens to this graph when you graph it with the DAB-C. Okay? The nice thing about the shortcut is you can go to your graph right away. Step 1 is your d value. Your d value is 2. So you go onto your graph, and at 2, draw and label your sinusoidal axis. I'm just going to write above here DAB-C, and as we work through things, that's what the d value, that's all you have to do for the d value. Done. Next, A, amplitude. Use your amplitude to mark your maximum and minimum on your y-axis. So your amplitude is the distance from the middle to a maximum. So I can go up 3 to 5, down 3 to -1. That's the only thing you need to do for your amplitude, is mark your maximum and your minimum on your y-axis. A value, done. B. For your B value, you can find your period. Your period, remember the formula that period is 2 pi over your B value? So we would have 2 pi divided by 1/2. How do you divide by 1/2? Dividing by fractions, multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 2 pi times 2 over 1, which is 4 pi. So we mark one period on our axis and divide it into 4 equal sections. 1/2 would be 2 pi, 1/2 would be pi, 1, 2, 3 pi. We have now done the B value. Before we do our C value, we do the dash, which means graph your function without the shift. Where does a cos graph start? A cos graph starts at a maximum. Then you've got your 4 sections, so you can go maximum, center line, minimum, center line, maximum. Draw that with a dotted line.
Hey, Huskies, come down to the front foyer for pizza. $5 for 2 slices. All sales go to the varsity girls volleyball team. See you there.
All right. And then finally, oh, I should mark it off. We've now done the dash part. We've drawn it with a dotted line. Finally, do your phase shift. We're going pi over 4 to the right. So here's pi over 4 to the right. This one moving pi over 4 to the right. Pi over 4 to the right, pi over 4 to the right, pi over 4 to the right. Take each of these points, shift them over pi over 4 to the right. And there's our final graph without having to do each point individually. Because for a sine or cos graph, if you use transformations, you have to do all 5 points, and you have lots of multiplying by fractions and odd adding. This is a lot easier and a lot faster. So this afternoon, we'll do some more examples like this.